Justice prevails in the case of former Southwest flight attendant Charlene Carter after she was illegally terminated for standing up to her union boss. Charlene is a pro-life Christian and a member of the local 556 of the Transport Workers Union until she became aware of how vastly the group's values differed from her own. In 2017, Charlene was outraged to learn her hard-earned union fees paid for the union president, Audrey Stone, to attend the pro-abortion Women's March in Washington, D.C. She took to social media to dissent and had garnered enough support to spearhead a recall effort against Stone. Charlene was soon called into her boss's office at Southwest Airlines and was informed that Stone had claimed to be harassed by her. A week later, Charlene was fired from the job she had held down for almost 2 decades. Now, luckily, Charlene's story has a happy ending. As you heard, she brought the case to court and a unanimous jury ruled she will receive $5.1 million from the airline and the local 556 of the Transport Workers Union in punitive damages. Joining us now to discuss more is Mark Mix, the president of the National Right to Work Legal Foundation, which provided pro bono representation to Charlene Carter. Thanks for being here tonight, Mark.
Kara, good to be with you, and surely glad to talk about this case and the result.
Definitely. So first, let's start with this. How important is this victory?
Well, first of all, from Charlene's standpoint, as you heard her mention, it's important for her that her actions and her courage and her ability to stand up and fight was vindicated by a jury of her peers. I mean, they heard the facts in the case and they sided with Charlene and believed that the union and the Southwest Airlines had mistreated her. For others, we believe it's going to open up a door and hopefully provide an opportunity for others who have the same views and may not have, an understanding of what their rights are and how they can fight back. It may give them an opportunity to fight back and exercise their rights in the American workplace too. So we're excited about the exposure of the case and letting other people know that they have rights that can be protected here as well.
And talking about the facts of the case, as you mentioned, that the jury was able to hear and to see during this court trial, but looking through some of the emails that came out through discovery, as part of discovery in this lawsuit, I mean, it was nasty. This union boss, she claims she was being harassed by poor Charlene Carter, but really it was literally the exact opposite. We see in these emails back and forth between the union boss and some of these other members, calling for assassinations even, laughingly calling people horrible names behind their backs, joking and snickering that Charlene Carter, that despite her pro-life values, that her money for 17 or so years was actually going to movements diametrically opposed to her own value system. I mean, talk to me about some of these emails that we saw.
Yeah, this is the dark underbelly of union representation. I mean, these are the union officials who stand up and say, we're all brothers and sisters and we're fighting for each other and we want to represent you. Well, in this case, Charlene and others in the union, other workers in the union, were basically being criticized and being, harassed by union activists, and actually even talking with Southwest employees and the HR department, talking about how, this certain worker is a cancer in the workplace and we have to have these targeted assassinations to get rid of these people. And yeah, one email said that Charlene's head would explode if she actually knew what the union had spent their money on over the last 17 years. I mean, this is the power and the kind of lack of accountability that exists in labor policy in America. When you give union officials the ability to speak for someone without their consent, to associate with them without their consent, even though they they may work against changing the union or trying to reform the union from the inside out. These are the types of things that happen when a government grants union officials monopoly power over American workers. And these emails are evidence of all of that.
And talking about her pro-life and Christian values, something else Charlene was opposed to with this union was their stance against a national, I have here, right to work law. And of course, that's what you're all about. Talk to me about those laws, because even when you type into Google, the first links that come up there is the AFL-CIO saying, this actually takes away workers' rights, and it's just all propaganda that you get. So talk to us about a national right to work law.
Yeah, it's real simple, Kara. I mean, the union put out an email to all union members and to those that oppose the union saying, you got to oppose the National Right to Work law. And Charlene Carter has been a supporter of right to work. And the National Right to Work law, Kara, is a one-page bill. In this odyssey that we have of 3,000-page bills or 2,900-page bills that you have to pass in order to understand what's in them, the National Right to Work Act is a one-page bill that doesn't add a single word to federal law. It simply goes back into the private sector law that was passed in the 1930s and the Railway Labor Act, which was passed in 1926, and it pulls out the power that union officials have to have a worker fired if they don't pay dues or fees. It doesn't stop anyone from joining a union, doesn't stop anyone from associating with the union. It just says that no worker like Charlene Carter can be fired or have their money used if they don't pay it for ideas and causes they disbelieve in. It gives the worker the accountability to hold union officials accountable that they should be focused on the workplace, not on politics. Real simple stuff. 27 states across the country have passed right-to-work laws. There's more work to be done, obviously, in 23 states, and workers under the Railway Labor Act, like Charlene, can be forced to pay fees to a union in order to keep their job. She opposes that, we oppose that, and 8 out of 10 Americans oppose it. So we're working on trying to pass a national right-to-work law.
And speaking of which, the last time we were able to have you on the show, we were talking about the Biden administration's attempt to kind of crack down on some of these right-to-work states. Has anything happened since in the interim, since the last time you and I spoke?
No, Kara, and when we talked the last time, we were talking about the PRO Act, which is a bill that's already passed the House of Representatives. It's sitting in the Senate. It passed the House with no testimony, no hearings. But the bill, the first thing it would do is repeal all 27 right-to-work laws across the country. Joe Biden has said he wants to sign it. In fact, he's eagerly awaiting it to arrive on his desk. There's a little trouble in the Senate right now, and some of the Democrats from right-to-work states, I think, are a little hesitant to actually fight and really push hard for it, even though the bill would do a lot more than repeal right-to-work laws. It would give union officials dramatic new powers over workers across the country. But so far, so good, Kara, in stopping it in the Senate.
As we're talking about everything that Charlene went through, of course, she's just one of many people who've had these experiences. Is this kind of typical of these big union bosses that you've seen in your line of work, at least?
Yeah, absolutely. The National Right to Work Foundation that's been around since 1968, representing people like Charlene for all of these years, literally representing hundreds of thousands of employees in cases like this. At any given 12-month period, we have anywhere from 230 to 250 cases on behalf of employees who have the courage to stand up and join together with our legal expertise and actually help to protect their rights in the workplace. So always lots of work to do, no question about that.
And last question before I let you go tonight, might be a little interesting type one. It's just a conversation I've heard by many on the right. Many different types of conservative factions, I guess you might call them, have different ideas that they've been proposing. And one idea I've seen floated is for the right to kind of, during this time of political realignment, kind of align themselves more with union, with labor, but in a different way than we've seen Democrats do in the past. Do you think there's a way forward on that, or do you think that perhaps union right now as it is and how it's been in America for decades may be a little too corrupt at this point to be redeemed?
Well, Kara, first and foremost, the rank and file union members across the country are not in favor of the stands that most union bosses take and the union's so-called leadership here in Washington, D.C. I mean, if you're in the energy business and you're a member of the Operating Engineers Union, when your union endorses President Joe Biden and then basically the first week he's in office, he basically shuts down the pipeline that you're working on, the Keystone Pipeline, and puts you on the unemployment line, one knows that rank and file workers and union officials, the difference between their views on workplace issues and, frankly, larger issues is growing wider and wider and wider all the time. I mean, President Trump wouldn't have been elected in 2016 if rank and file workers in Wisconsin and Michigan and Ohio and Indiana hadn't stayed up and stood up for him and voted for him because of his stand on issues that most rank and file workers agree with and the Democrats opposed. That the awareness of the difference between the leadership of the big unions in America and Washington, D.C. in particular, and rank and file workers is growing wider and wider. And so if Republicans will basically stick to their agenda of protecting the border and Second Amendment rights and lowering taxes and reducing the size of government, they're going to win the hearts and minds of rank and file union members across the country. If they try to change it and be more like the Democrats, they're going to have a problem too.
Well, Mark, I really appreciate it. Thanks for dropping by tonight.
All right, Kara, thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.